Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Cold Hard Truth podcast. I'm Jack Smith.
I'm Shrikar Rajendran.
And I'm Anish Gupta.
It's nice to be back, fellas. Glad we get to talk again. These two go off to college in a little bit, so enjoy these last couple episodes. We're assuming we're going to keep this able to be going. We don't have to take a break or anything like that, but if somehow, these two are gone for a little bit, let's cherish these last couple episodes at least. And we actually have a really good one today. There's been a lot of stuff going on, of course, with the season coming closer and closer, preseason starting and all that stuff. We're going to have more news and training camp, obviously, starting these last couple of weeks. Today, we're going to talk about the Colts. They had two big injuries to Carson Wentz and Quenton Nelson. They re-signed Darius Leonard. So we'll talk about, them, their AFC South counterparts, maybe what's going to happen with them, the Titans and the Jaguars. Looking to make maybe an interesting move, trading CJ Henderson. We'll talk about some other training camp news like Trey Lance, who's been blowing up the scene at the 49ers training camp. We'll talk about Joe Burrow and his struggles, the New York Giants, who have been, they're causing everyone on the team to retire at this point. So we got to talk about it. And then to round it out, Josh Allen signed a really big extension. So we'll hit that at the end. And of course, we might talk about a bunch of random stuff from now to then. If you're on YouTube, please consider hitting the like button, the subscribe button, and leaving a comment on whatever you think. And if you're on Apple Podcasts and you enjoy the show today, please think about subscribing. We'd really appreciate it. But Anish, so sorry about it. I know it's every year for you now. Carson Wentz out 5 to 12 weeks after foot surgery. What's your take, first of all? I know it hit you pretty hard.
Yeah,
We want to hear what's your thoughts about the Carson Wentz injury.
I've watched sports for a long time. There have been 3 times where I've almost shed a tear or have had the Browns when we went 0-16, the time we made the playoffs, and then this. Dude, when I found out in the morning that he was going to be out, I was so sad. I was like, there's no way. I mean, he comes to a new team. I'm so happy. He looked really good in training camp. He went a perfect, I think he missed 2 passes in 11 on 11s. I think he went 11 for 13. He was doing so well. I was so happy. He went to the team that I wanted him to go to, and, for this to happen. And just I was reading the comments of on his post. So he had something that I had reposted. It was a year 6 is on the way. And I was like, yes, new setup, new team. He's going to do great. And then I just look at the comments when he got the injury. It's just it was just so foul. Some of the things they were saying, made of glass, oh, how's year 6 for you? It sucked. People on social media are a little bit harsh for that. But in regards to the injury, 5 to 12 weeks, I think it's likely that, with the longest period of time him being out for is week 8. I looked at their schedule. It was brutal with him.
Yep.
I didn't even know if they were going to get
crazy without him.
Those 5 weeks. It is hard. They have to play the Dolphins, for the Ravens, the Seahawks. Those are just teams off the top of my head that I remember. I mean, it is a really brutal schedule. And forget Quenton Nelson. Without Wentz, I didn't know if they were going to hit 3 and 5. Now that Quenton Nelson is also out, because I think people can agree with this, he's probably the most impactful offensive lineman in the league. You could argue.
I would disagree. I'd say he's the best offensive lineman, but I feel like a guard cannot be the most impactful.
Yeah, that's fair. But
that's kind of the argument.
I mean, I've watched just how much he helps open holes in the run game.
Yeah.
Especially on zone weak, runs to the left, zone running scheme. It's just insane. But I'm a huge fan of Quenton Nelson. And I know he's a guard, but that's what I'm saying. For him to do stuff like that, I think he is one of the most impactful, if not. And for him to also be out, that really hurts a guy like Jacob Eason, who is the projected, fill-in for Carson Wentz. So, the Colts, really, it's not looking too good. And I jinxed them. I bet on Carson Wentz to be better than the Niners and the Titans. So I'm sorry, Colts fans, for jinxing him again. But also another thing, Eagles fans, right? They're also pretty pissed off because so the deal was the Colts have to make the playoffs or Wentz has to play 75% of the snaps. And obviously if he can't play till week 8, that's immediately eradicated. So that's rough. That is rough. So but I want to confirm it. It's 75% of the snaps the entire year, 75%, right? Not 75% of the snaps he is eligible to play. It has to be. I believe it's for the entire year because they had the injury contingency on there. So yeah, it just sucks. I'm hopeful that he can, come back before, but I would not want to rush this. This is not something I want to rush, especially because it's the same bone bruise that what Nelson and Wentz have,
Yep.
and it hurts your mobility a lot. And I was even I always just randomly will tend to watch his highlights. He just, ever since that ACL too, the leg and just overall, I think it's the same leg too. He just hasn't looked the same as mobile wise. So, and that's a lot of his game. If you watch his 2017 season, that was so much him making plays out of the pocket. So
Yeah.
Really tough. I'll pass it on to you guys. I think it's, it's just one of the worst injuries that's happened so far in the offseason. And obviously as probably the biggest Carson Wentz fan outside of, Indianapolis and Philadelphia, hurts.
Yeah. I mean, no pun intended with hurts, but it's, as you said, a brutal stretch. And it's not just that Eagles fans are mad about the 75% threshold, but the Eagles organization willfully ate 34 mil in dead money just to get rid of Carson Wentz. And now that you don't really get that first round pick anymore, that just turns into a second.
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of have to be a little bit mad about that. But look, these first 5 games, Seattle, the Rams, the Titans, Dolphins, and Ravens. Titans, Dolphins, Ravens are all on the road.
That's 5. Those are 5 losses.
Those are 5 losses.
Those are
right
literally
there.
all playoff teams.
And if you're starting Jacob Eason, Brett Hundley, Sam Ellinger, you're doomed. Like
without
you're not
Quenton Nelson as well. I mean,
you're not
that's the thing. Like
with no Quenton Nelson, no Eric Fisher. I mean, you're doomed. Like those are all losses for me. So it just sucks. For the Colts, they're getting hit with the injury bug this year because they really have, one of the more complete rosters in the game.
This is genuinely a top if Wentz hadn't gotten hurt, Nelson was coming in. I had them as my top 3 to 4 teams in the AFC. I was really high. I know that's a lot of people, but I was very high on this team
because they have a very complete team. And I mean, it's definitely understandable, but this entire offseason was pretty much a gamble by Chris Ballard because you were banking on Wentz. And now that Wentz goes down, Quenton Nelson goes down too, your best O-lineman. It's just not looking good at all for the Colts now. And what was once, a season, full of big hopes, you maybe have, deep playoff run dreams, that's just all shattered now in the matter of a couple of days. So it just really sucks. And I'm sorry, Colts fans, this had to happen. As a Niners fan, I kind of had to go through this last year.
Literally happened with Andrew Luck 2 years ago for them.
Yeah, it happened with Andrew Luck.
You lose your, potential playoff maker.
Colts QBs, man. It's it sucks. But I don't know. Maybe we could look at replacements. You could trade for Jimmy Garoppolo. Maybe that's long shot.
You really want to get something for him.
Yeah, you really want Trey to start right away, huh? Okay.
Yeah, let's get that contract off the books, John Lynch. But no, Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, Nick Foles has also been, in discussion. Obviously, Frank Reich having worked with Foles before, I wouldn't put it past them. I was also thinking Marcus Mariota because even when Carson Wentz comes back, that is a high-end backup. Marcus Mariota would be really nice for them, and he can win them games. I'm sure of it, but. One player that Jack threw out there, and I'm going to let him, kind of go off on this, but Gardner Minshew. I don't think that's going to happen just because, it's within the division, but I wouldn't put it past the Jags if they're really desperate to get rid of Gardner Minshew, especially with, Trevor Lawrence in the fold. I mean, that might be a good move for the Colts to really look into.
Yeah, especially, we're going to get into it later with CJ Henderson, and we were talking off air about how it happened with Ronnie Harrison, but they just if a player isn't valuable to them, they're really not afraid to move them. And so I guess it is unlikely for an interdivision trade to happen, especially with a quarterback. If they're coming to you saying, "Oh, can we trade for your quarterback to save our season?" Do you really think the Jaguars are going to say yes? But to be honest, like I've said the entire offseason, with this new with Urban Meyer and this whole new Jaguars organization, I got no idea. Legitimately no clue what's going on with them, especially with the CJ Henderson stuff. But to round it back around to Wentz, I feel like whenever Anish talks about Wentz, I do have to be the one to kind of bring the conversation back down to earth because he got hurt, and yes, you can watch the 2017 highlights as much as you want.
It hurt. Also, you don't understand how many times I've watched that video. I think I have accounted for so many views on that thing.
And I can imagine, but also we still didn't know whether we were getting that Wentz or last season maybe the worst quarterback in the league Wentz. So yes, this is a tough blow if you're thinking about it in the sense of, the Colts are losing this quarterback that could be an MVP level candidate, but also that wasn't a guarantee. So I feel like that one, while it does suck that he was injured, we still didn't know what he was going to be. So he could have gone out there and looked like he did last year, and that would make this injury, not matter as much. The Quenton Nelson one is the one that really does matter. I mean, you can send Jacob Eason out there and have him hand off the ball to Jonathan Taylor, Nyheim Hines, Marlon Mack, and one of the best offensive lines in the league. But without Quenton Nelson there, I mean, the Colts could really struggle. Like, I feel like they would have struggled to kind of find their footing without Wentz, but without Wentz and now without Nelson, if you're going to have that young quarterback in there and you can't develop the running game, you're probably going to lose the first 5 games. I mean, to be honest, all of those games that we talked about, they're not going to win. I really don't think they're going to win any of those 5 games without those 2 players.
Obviously, you can win on any given Sunday, but these 5 teams are disciplined. They're not new. They've bought into a system already for a couple of years. It's hard, right?
And their defense isn't at the level where they can compete without offensive production. Like, their defense is pretty good. I would say it's pretty solid.
It's tier 2.
And there's weeks where it looks dominant, but also, like, if you're not producing on offense, it's kind of all a mess for the Colts right now. And so I think they wanted a little bit of positivity. They re-signed Darius Leonard. He's getting paid more than Fred Warner, which we all kind of knew was going to happen.
Yeah. By 0.8, it's not much. I think they just wanted him to be the highest paid.
Yeah,
we've seen this happen all the time. People want.
Well, I mean, we knew
they just wanted to see the value with the Warner deal.
And now I guarantee you, Roquan Smith will be the next highest paid.
Yeah.
So at least good on the Niners for getting that done early. But for the Colts, I mean, Colts fans, it sucks. I mean, I remember the Jets year where they sent Luke Falk out there. It's like, I think we also have to do, like, as much as I'm going to say all this stuff about Carson Wentz, when you send a quarterback out there that Luke Falk had no business playing in the NFL, and we don't know about Jacob Eason yet, but he could very well have no business playing in the NFL either. So it could be a rough couple or even, several weeks for Colts fans. And while I'm hoping that doesn't happen, and we'll get to the next question eventually, I do feel bad for Colts fans. I feel terrible for Carson Wentz. As much as I like to clown Anish for it, I do want to see him succeed. I mean, I said over the offseason.
Just the one stain on the football acumen is this guy. I just want him to succeed, man. I just want him to prove everybody wrong. All these doubters on his social media page, just let him go back there. But we're going to have to wait. This literally happened with Debo. Same injury. Like, I guess it's just the goop curse. That's what we call it on.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's what it is. And it sucks that, like, this comes after last year. Like, we had so many injuries last year, and it's like we're already starting now. We're seeing Carson Wentz be injured. Saquon might not, play until later in the season. Like, he might miss the first couple of weeks. Joe Burrow is not looking his right self. You guys talked about it last week, I believe. Dak Prescott not looking his normal self either. It's just it's the harsh reality of football, and right now the Colts are getting all of it directed onto themselves. And so, Colts fans, we're sorry. Our next question, we don't have to spend too much time on this because, I feel like it might be an easier answer. Are the Titans a lock to win the AFC South? I never go as far to say lock in the NFL because you never know, but it's looking pretty likely that
it's definitely trending in that direction.
Yeah.
Like,
and also,
and I literally, for those who don't know, I made a bet with 2 people, one being Shrikar, that the Colts would beat the Titans out for the division, obviously banking on Carson Wentz. And now this happened. Obviously, Quenton Nelson also gets the same injury. So yeah, I'm also going to say the Titans are a lock. They got better, as did the Colts, but the Titans now, they're not facing any injury bug. And, again, same kind of system. I'm very interested into seeing, without Arthur Smith, how it's going to be, right?
Yeah.
Like how their offense is going to be because, he's going to Atlanta. He's leaving, a team that, relied heavily on Derrick Henry. But again, I've never said he's the thing that makes him go. I think it's Tannehill. But, how is the Julio Jones factor going to work? But I don't even think that necessarily matters in terms of who's going to be a lock to win this division. I think, the Jags have their own issues. The Texans obviously are just a dumpster fire right now. And now the Colts are honestly in that same discussion. I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, this preseason is very, very important for the Colts, which is, blessed that, at least we get a preseason for teams like this to at least get 3 weeks to kind of, slowly adjust and get everything ready for week 1. But yeah, I think the Titans are a lock.
Yeah, it's definitely. I think as Jack said, there's no real thing like a lock, but I mean, it is definitely, trending in that direction. And I think this injury just kind of set it in stone for me, because the Colts, I believe are going, 0-5, 1-4 to start the year. And that's already going to set them back, pretty far back, because the Titans will probably start the year out hot. If everything goes according to plan. They also play the Titans
before Wentz comes back. If he comes back week 8.
That's actually going to be a big game too. Yeah. If the Colts somehow win that game, maybe they have a shot. Yeah. But if I was gonna bet right now, I'd definitely say that the Titans are gonna win the AFC South.
And I think that the first Colts preseason game coming this weekend, that's going to be one that a lot of eyes are going to be on, because we'll see all the quarterbacks. I mean, we'll see everyone they got thrown on the field, because they're going to have to try and figure it out now.
Yeah.
And I think I wouldn't be surprised if, how Philly was kind of always flip-flopping on quarterbacks, where they would give Jalen Hurts reps, even with Carson Wentz there. I'll bet you the Colts were trying to be the reverse of that. They were trying to show confidence in Carson Wentz. They're giving him all the reps. They're trying to literally just shell it out all to him. And now that he's down, they're screwed. I mean, realistically, they're screwed. We just got to hope that he's back soon, that he comes back healthy, because
please.
He deserves a chance, a fully healthy season, to prove Anish right.
Yes. For my sake. Yeah. Yes, please. I think their playoff hopes literally got shattered as soon as he went down. I think
and with all this news, you've been sad, but Shrikar, I assume you've been pretty happy about the news coming out of Niners camp. I know you said you were there one day, and I definitely want to hear about that, but Trey Lance has been lighting it up for the 49ers, and it's honestly really funny. The quarterback that everyone kind of expected to take some time, and everyone's like, no, you know what? He's not starting the season over Jimmy Garoppolo. Give him time. He's making a case for himself with some of the throws he's been making, some of the strides he's been making as well under Kyle Shanahan. He's pushing Jimmy Garoppolo for that spot, even getting some Niners fans and just people around the league to think about a Garoppolo trade. Yeah. So, Shrikar, you could start us off. Trey Lance, what are you feeling?
As Jack said, I was lucky enough to see Trey Lance live, and this Niner team, everything is looking really good, like QB room wise, because Jimmy Garoppolo, while we're hyping up Trey Lance like a lot, Jimmy Garoppolo's still looking like really good. Like I still think he's going to be the starter in week 1. I don't expect Trey Lance to get that starting spot immediately. And I think before watching this camp, my initial stance was that Trey Lance would not play the entire year. I thought Jimmy Garoppolo, would be the starter. And barring injury, I think he'd play the entire year. But, after watching this, I think Trey Lance is going to be thrown in at some point this year. And I think it's hard to place when it's going to be. I'm not going to do that. But I think we will see Trey Lance this year. Maybe, as Kyle said, maybe not as a starter, but, he'll be thrown in maybe in the pistol, if you want to run a read option. Like, he's the perfect guy to do that with. Just get him more acclimated to the offense. But from what I saw at camp, I think the hype is definitely justified to a certain degree. Trey Lance is looking like, really good. He's looking like he's, come far along in the process. But there are still like things that make me think he's still like the raw prospect coming out of North Dakota State, right? Like, he's still taking a little bit too long on his reads. Obviously can't sack QBs in camp. So there's a lot of times he'd keep his eyes locked, and then he'd start to just, sit there. And then at that point, you're going to get sacked. He would just forget to break out of the pocket and do what he does best. So that's something that could be fixed later on. But I think his accuracy is there. Otherwise, he when he can make the right read, he's perfect for a Shanahan offense, especially in a scheme where Kyle can just scheme receivers open. I think he's perfect for that. I think his connection with Ayuk is really good. Don't sleep on Brandon Ayuk this year. He's going to be a beast. But really, Trey Lance, he's looking good. He's looking, far along, but not too far along, where I'd say that he is the starter in week 1, because it's still going to take time and he is still a raw prospect. But who knows? Maybe learning in the game would be nice for him, getting those reps, in actual games against actual defenses. Maybe that would help his case. But in 11 on 11s, he was looking pretty good, and he was looking good. But I don't think we should take away from Jimmy Garoppolo, because I still think he is the starter week 1, and I still think he is looking, like the QB of this team.
That is the most non-biased and objective part about Trey Lance I've seen from a Niner fan, so I appreciate you for saying that, because obviously being from the Bay, we are around a lot of Niner fans, and I've talked to a lot of them about how Trey Lance has been looking. And when I was watching it, he's been the guy I've watched most out of the 5 rookie quarterbacks, all the camp highlights. And here's what I tell Niner fans before they, start saying, "Oh, he's going to start. Oh, he's looking really, really good." Trey Lance hasn't thrown for 300. He hasn't thrown more than 300 passes in his college career. He's also had more than 20 completions once. So he is very inexperienced.
Yep.
That is what I'm telling people. Obviously, he's getting under an NFL system. He's learning under NFL coaches, and he's playing NFL competition. He's learning. And yes, he's lighting it up with his talent. There were some throws, especially on his left side, where he just puts the ball in stride. It was amazing. Some of the throws he made, especially to Brandon Ayuk. I mentioned it. A couple of ones I was nitpicking, he threw a little high, but again, like I said, he's probably been the best one in camp so far out of the 5, or at least dazzled the most. But for Trey Lance, here's my thing. I think similar to Shrikar, I wasn't expecting him to see the field if Jimmy Garoppolo was completely healthy this year. Now that thought has kind of erased, and I think preseason will also be a good telling factor how he will handle, NFL pressure, how he will handle, escaping the pocket and making those type of reads. But yes, as Shrikar mentioned, he's learning to progress through. He kind of struggled with that sometimes at North Dakota State, and I think with Trey Lance and this whole Niners QB competition, I talked to a Niner fan and he actually mentioned this, one point that I wanted to bring up. Shanahan's kind of been saying this kind of but situation, like, Trey Lance has been great, but we still have this guy number 10 who took us to a Super Bowl. So I think, Jimmy Garoppolo has also had his good moments in camp. They're obviously not going to be highlighted as much because the Niners kind of gave like 3 first-round picks for this guy, number 5. So I think, Jimmy G's also been good. I think he's going to be the starter week 1. And Niner fans have to be patient, because with a guy like this, you have to take your time with, especially with how much you gave in for him. Because if you send him in too early, it could be a disaster. We've seen quarterbacks that are thrown into the fire too early and they just don't succeed. So, I think, for example, I thought Sam Darnold should have gotten a little bit more time, but Trey Lance, they're doing it right, in my opinion. They're letting him get some first team reps. They're letting him, see what he's got. He's having some good connections out there. He's making some good throws, but give it some time. That is my only thing. I think that is the one thing I would say. It's no knock on him. It's not saying you can't do it. It's just got to be patient with a guy like that, especially with how much you gave.
Yeah, I think you're right about the Niners fans needing to be patient, because I think if you could look back, I think the number one success story for rookie quarterbacks and letting them wait is Patrick Mahomes. And it's probably going to be Patrick Mahomes forever. I'll guarantee you that Patrick Mahomes was making flashes like Trey Lance has been in Chiefs camp year 1. But the thing is, they knew that the player that they drafted, and they knew that, he might be showing some flashes, but he's not ready yet. We're going to wait 1 year. And they had Alex Smith too. I feel like it's a very similar situation.
Oh, 100%.
So, Trey Lance, he's showing all these flashes. And of course, he's looking like a great quarterback, but we got to remember what he was like as a prospect. I'm not going to knock him for his training camp flashes, but I remember doing a scouting report on him. I remember the things he needed to fix and the points that you bring up, Anish. And so to Niners fans, the one thing I would say is there's a difference between being ahead of schedule and being ready. I would say from what I've seen so far, Trey Lance is ahead of schedule. He's looking ahead of schedule.
Perfect point.
Yeah.
But I don't think that he's looking ready quite yet, especially also if they have Jimmy Garoppolo around. Ready is a whole different word. You can be ready if you're the only quarterback there. Like from what I've been seeing at a Jets camp, Zach Wilson has been struggling a little bit, and he's making some rookie mistakes, but he's making some good throws.
Oh yeah, I think he's been like the definition of up and down. If we want,
he's been up and down, but for the Jets, that's going to be ready for this season, because he's going to be as ready as he can be, because they don't have any other options. If Trey Lance was playing at that level, like, he's not ready yet, and with the Niners, because they still have Jimmy Garoppolo, being ready is a completely different term for Trey Lance than it will be for Trevor Lawrence. It will be for Zach Wilson. It'll probably be different for Mac Jones and for Trevor Lawrence too, because, they're behind Cam Newton and Andy Dalton. But Jimmy Garoppolo, yeah, you're right. He did take him to a Super Bowl. And while I've never been the biggest Jimmy G fan, I feel like he is still the Niners starting quarterback. And so I'll go back to what I said. Difference between, being ahead of schedule with Trey Lance is, I believe, at the moment, and being ready.
Yeah, and as Anish, he brought up an excellent point with the preseason games, because all we've seen from him is training camp. An actual preseason game, it's all about the game within the game. And a preseason game will move a lot faster, less time to think. As I said before, he's not getting sacked in training camp. He can't afford the type of mistakes he's making in an actual preseason game. So I wouldn't be surprised if, he comes out, I'm assuming in the first preseason game against the Chiefs and doesn't do, as good as Niner fans are hoping he's going to do, because it's a lot faster. The man has not played an actual game since 2019. He had that one showcase.
He had that one.
He had that one showcase game. Yeah, and he didn't do that great. So obviously the lack of experience is there, and I think it's going to show in the preseason game. But another thing, it's just kind of a trend. It's not really anything like analytics based, but a rookie QB has never won the Super Bowl. And if Trey Lance start the year week 1, wouldn't bet on a Niners Super Bowl team. You know what I'm saying? So it's just Jimmy Garoppolo is the starter. I'll just keep it at that. And I think he is going to be the guy week 1 and for the foreseeable future until, the Niners feel that he's truly, Trey Lance is truly ready for that opportunity.
With all the big games the Niners have to play, think about it, right? Every NFC West game is huge. Implications will always be huge. They have to play the AFC South. They're going to have some big games there too. Every game matters. And especially for the Niners, they're going to be highlighted, especially in the West Coast. And is Trey Lance ready for that? I'm sorry, but we just don't know. I can't give you a definitive answer. That's not saying he can't, but that's the whole point about the NFL. The NFL is all about questions. And right now, my thing is Trey Lance has more questions than Jimmy Garoppolo. And I think that's a better way to put it. That's just how Niner fans got to look at it right now.
And to round it out, I want to talk, you talked about Kyle Shanahan saying they could use him in packages. And that's something I definitely want to see this year, but it also completely dispels a rumor that people were talking about where they were like, no, Shanahan, he doesn't want a mobile quarterback. With the way that he was talking about those extra packages, he definitely wants a mobile quarterback.
He's always wanted one.
He wants to run pistols
since RG3. He's always wanted one. I don't know where this notion came from, and
it came from the Niner fans that didn't want them to draft Trey Lance.
Yeah,
it came from Chris Sims, by the way. Mac Jones. Mac Jones is the pick, guys. I knew it. I've known it all along. I mean, it was going to be Fields.
He's tried making plays for Matt Ryan outside the pocket. I used to see it, and he tried it with Manziel too. I've never gotten.
He's been searching for it. He even said he wants a guy that's a blend of Drew Brees and Lamar Jackson, which is the weirdest combination, but I think he may have found it in Trey Lance.
Let's hope. And I think Niners fans, you deserve to be excited, but just stay patient a little bit. For the Bengals, who are the next team we're going to talk about in training camp, their quarterback one, they're supposedly, big prospect, Joe Burrow, drafted number 1 a couple years ago, and unfortunately went down with injury. It really sucks seeing the news that's been coming out of their training camp, because word on the street is he is just not looking right. And it seems like the injury is still a big fixture of what he's going through on the football field. He's been really struggling under pressure with the Bengals offensive line isn't performing to the ability that maybe we hoped that they could get to this year. And maybe the Joe Burrow hype for the comeback season that we had maybe been hearing about is slowly starting to die down, because it is a tough injury to come back from. And apparently, from what we've been hearing, he's not coming back for it and coming back from it in the best way so far. So now that we've heard that, what are some things that you guys think we can expect from Joe Burrow this season? What's your guys' take on this whole news? And what's your outlook?
They're 100% rushing him back.
Yep.
100%.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Okay, let's just give some context. Saquon Barkley had the same injury, and it was actually less because Burrow had multiple ligaments torn in the knee, right? It was more than an ACL. Saquon got injured 2.5 months prior. Joe Burrow got injured I think it was in November. Okay, Saquon was mid-September, so it was 2 months. Joe Burrow is doing full core reps. I don't know why he's trying to rush back for week 1. It's not a smart idea. I mean, especially with how the O-line has looked too. They have looked awful. And this is what we predicted with them not taking Penei Sewell, which again, Jack was saying it too. That was a smart pick, but he predicted that they were going to go with Chase because of all the hype surrounding it. I stuck by Sewell because I was just thinking, I was like, please just do the pick that, I would have wanted to see, but this is just, it's not looking good. Jonah Williams, I still haven't heard anything, of him standing out. This offensive line just hasn't been productive. And especially with Joe Burrow, he hasn't been able to make plays outside the pocket. There have been times where they have been able to get to him in in 2.5 seconds. Like, it's been really quick. He hasn't been able to extend the play. Even when he stood back, I was seeing a couple of these notes. Like, he stood back in practice 5 to 7 minutes to work with Jamar Chase. Some of the balls that I saw him throw were just not like, same some of the throws that I saw last year. It's just he hasn't looked the same. And I think they're rushing him 100% because they're trying to force him back in week 1 because they don't have anybody else. Like, they don't have someone that they can, be the steadfast guy and have him ease into it. They just don't have him. Joe Burrow is their franchise. Like, they've put a lot of stock into him. They've built it around him. They've tried. And I just don't know what we're going to see because, they've got the Vikings coming up, and the Vikings defensive line is pretty hungry. And week 1, I just don't know how it's going to be. I think it could be a disaster. I'm worried if I'm a Bengals fan, and I don't know how many reps I would give him in the preseason, because if I were them, I would have slowly eased him back maybe into week 2, week 3, because, he's already had kind of practice under his belt last year. He's not like a full-on rookie. So I just don't agree with what they did, and I'm really not surprised that the offense has struggled.
Yeah, I mean, draft night, same thing. I knew it was going to be Jamar Chase, but for a while now, I was saying the pick should be Sewell, and that, the Bengals should focus on the middle of the field, because Jackson Carman, I haven't heard anything out. Is he doing good? Is he doing? I don't know what's going on with him.
I don't know.
I'm sure with Penei Sewell, I would have been hearing good things, but yeah. I guess hearing no news is better than hearing bad news. So hopefully Jackson Carman's doing good. But again, yes, I agree. 100%. They are rushing him back. And the first indication, like, I knew that, was when he was always holding on to his knee when he was getting rushed. He is scared. He is like genuinely shook. And that is something I'm definitely worried about. Do I think this will derail Joe Burrow's comeback season? No, I will not say that, because I do think Joe Burrow can still put together a quality season, but it does give me, some pause for concern, because as your franchise quarterback, if I'm a Bengals fan, I don't want to see him clutching his torn ACL. That's just not something you want to see ever, because, that's definitely concerning. So again, I still think they should have took Sewell. I know they wanted to reunite Chase with Burrow, and, maybe Jamar Chase ends up being great for them.
Boyd and Higgins. Wow.
But I'm taking a generational tackle over the best receiver in the class. That's me, especially a guy like Penei Sewell. I just don't see how you pass that up. But I mean, they found a way to do it, and I think they believe in Jamar Chase. T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd would have been fine.
That's what
you have Joe Mixon in the backfield. So you've been perfectly fine. But you didn't need Jamar Chase.
Bengals fans were hyping up T. Higgins so much last year. They were literally
it's justified.
I literally thought he was. I thought there were times where I would have, I thought he was better than CeeDee Lamb, who people are saying is the second best. I was so high on this guy.
Higgins was looking good.
But Jamar Chase, how much he's good. Like, he's a good receiver. I think he's the best in the class, but how much of a difference would he have made? Like, again, people don't tend to realize receivers are not like that important to an offense. Obviously the position itself, but players, no. I think offensive line, I told people this, right? It starts from the lines of scrimmage. That is how you win games.
And I saw a report, I forgot who it came from, but it said like Jamar Chase is struggling to, create separation in camp. It's just training camp, but already, early returns.
This is the one team I've only heard, like, I haven't heard anything about someone standing up. This is the one team I've heard good things about, at least every other team about somebody. This is the one team I haven't heard anything.
Yeah. I mean, we could be witnessing the end of Zach Taylor, and
oh yeah, for sure. He's on the hot
especially seat. if Burrow is just not right because they rushed him back with the draft pick and everything, and if they just completely bomb this season, he's gone. I feel like
blame will fall on him. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I'm worried about Burrow too, because if Zach Taylor's gone, you bring in a new coach. Hopefully it ends up being good for him. But I don't know. Burrow's career is already looking like, I really hope he succeeds. I really want him to recover from this torn ACL, because I was really thinking like he would have a great comeback season, especially with what I saw last year. But I don't know. I think the Bengals organization is failing him right now. That's how you put it best. They're failing him.
Yeah, so the next team we're going to talk about in this episode, the final part of this training camp news segment, is the New York Giants. And I remember all three of us last year were actually really high on what Joe Judge was doing. And we were saying, it really looks like he was a good head coaching hire. Of course, kind of everyone and their mother was a little bit skeptical on the move when he was hired. But we saw that, He kind of brought the Patriot way to the Giants. He was a no-nonsense kind of guy, and it looked like it was working. This offseason and this training camp, we're seeing the other side of that. It started with Kelvin Benjamin retiring on the field and walking off and getting in a fight. And we thought, oh, Kelvin Benjamin, he's done this kind of stuff before. This is just a reflection of him. We've seen, I believe, 2 more players since then completely retire in the middle of training camp. Joe Looney, and I'm forgetting the other one. I'm blanking on it.
Yeah.
But
Zach Fulton.
Zach Fulton.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So that's 3 guys right now who have retired because of the Giants training camp. And so while we might have all been high on Joe Judge and what he did with his first year with the Giants, this is unprecedented. I mean, we've never seen this. And so it's forcing us to ask some questions about the type of head coach he really is, the type of ship that they're really running in New York. And so I'm curious to hear what your guys' thoughts are. And this is the one thing, if you guys are listening to this episode and you want to leave a comment, this is the one thing I want to hear from you guys. What are your guys' opinion of what's going on with the New York Giants? Do you think anything's going on behind the scenes? Is there something that we really need to be thinking about? What's your guys' opinion? But for now, you two, what do you guys think what's going on with Joe Judge, the Giants, all these retirements and everything like that?
As much digging as I've tried to do, on this whole ordeal, ever since the Kelvin Benjamin retirement, it's like, I don't know. I don't know what's going on, because is this a reflection on Joe Judge? Is this a reflection on the players, his punishments? I don't know what's going on. If all I've heard is that he makes his players run, and I don't think anyone is going to retire outright over some up downs and some wind sprints.
When you're in the NFL.
Yeah, you gotta be used to that.
You're used to it. But, yeah.
So for that reason, I just don't know what's going on, and I don't know if there's enough out on the situation. I don't know what's causing these players to retire. I don't even have a theory for why they could retire, because I think Joe Judge is a great coach. So I don't know what's going on. And, it even goes back to that fight where apparently Daniel Jones ended up bottom of the pile or whatever.
I totally forgot to mention that, didn't I?
Yeah, I don't know it's
crazy.
This is a very bizarre training camp. I just don't know what's going on. Anish, if you have any idea, please inform me.
So
I don't know.
I did some digging prior to this. First, there are actually, I was going to say that Daniel Jones ended up on the bottom of the pile. And I think it started with, no surprise, Evan Ingram. I think it was with Logan Ryan, if I'm not mistaken.
It was someone.
So they got into it, and then a big pile aroused, and obviously Daniel Jones was the bottom of it. But there are actually players who came out and defended what happened. So Sterling Shepard had a press conference the other day, and he full on defended what happened. He said, we've bought into this. This is who Joe Judge is. And it wasn't kind of a shot on the players that retired, but I actually did watch a little clip of it, of just him saying, this is how we're playing. This is what we bought into, and there were a couple guys who even I think Corey Clement, he said he loved it. There were some players who were actually, kind of fed some off, some adrenaline off that. And here's the thing, that's just who Joe Judge is. He's a huge personality guy. He's the type of guy that will take over a locker room. But when I first heard about this, I was like, okay, I've always believed Joe Judge is a good coach ever since, we heard the stories last year. And obviously I'm a lot higher on the Giants. I've always been these last 2 years. I'm high on them again this year. They've had some struggles with, Kenny Golladay being one, and now that he's also injured. But my thing is, with this particular incident, when I first heard about it, I was like, if he loses the locker room, that is the worst guy to lose it, because since he's so high character, so high personality, if he loses people buying into that, that just creates problems. But if there are still players, core players, mind you, right? Sterling Shepard is a core player, a veteran, a leader of this team who's been there for the last 5 years. If he is saying something like this, it gives me some hope. And I think, there's still 4.5 weeks till the season. There is plenty of time for this Giants team to come back together, because we haven't really heard anything since that, besides the 2 retirements yet. And I'm hoping it stops there. Right. And I think that last one was a few days ago. So and those happened, within a span of 2 days. Right. So, that was when everyone was like, oh my gosh, okay, what's going on? But yeah, Kelvin Benjamin, I think, was a completely different, situation. He's done this kind of thing before. That's why I wasn't, so, heavily into it, because Joe Judge is a high personality guy. And again, Kelvin Benjamin, we've seen him get into it with Ron Rivera. We've seen him have his thing with the Bills, so this has happened plenty of times, but to hear it with these type of guys, but the fact is, despite Daniel Jones being under the pile, they wanted to make sure he was okay. At least teammates came up to him and said, make sure you don't want to get our quarterback hurt. And the fact that Daniel Jones wasn't freaking out about it and getting angry, I think that just shows that, it wasn't that type of brawl. But I think it actually earned him some, credit in the locker room, the fact that he jumped in the fight, right? Like he got into it. And I think, players respect that, a quarterback kind of coming in, and buying into what, at least if a team brawl is going on, you're there for your teammates. So that's kind of my take on it. I think, there are definitely some downs about it. And there's some questions now about if Joe Judge can keep that locker room, because again, like I said, he's a guy that you don't want to lose it with. But if guys like, Sterling Shepard are saying this, and I think that was probably the thing that kind of turned the tide, at least, or gave me some sense of clarity about where the Giants can still head this year.
And it's just one in a long line of just really weird and kind of crazy things that have happened during this training camp period. You mentioned Ron Rivera. There was the huge exchange between him and the Washington football team players about the COVID vaccine. And if he was getting blamed for having cancer, I didn't understand that. And then at Panthers training camp, there was a huge hit where they had to actually, release the safety who made the hit.
He had the receiver. I forget it starts with a K, but he had to go. He was hospitalized immediately.
We saw there was a fight at Lions camp between Amon-Ra St. Brown and one other defender who I'm forgetting the name of. But then you saw Dan Campbell in the press conference saying, that hyped me up a bit. And it's like, there's just a lot of crazy stuff happening. I think that's kind of something we missed over this past year where, we didn't have the big collections of people. Now you're getting these big collections of people who didn't really have a ton of time to socialize over the past year and putting them into a big group with a full set of media eyes around them. Everyone's paying attention now. People are out and about at these practices, and it's just crazy. It's with the fights and
I wanted to throw another thing. I know we didn't have this on the topic list, but there was also a thing between the Rams and the Cowboys.
Yep.
Yeah. Connor, I forget what is his last
Connor
name.
Williams and
Aaron Donald.
So Connor Williams actually had some great reps against Aaron Donald. And there was one, when they were going full on scrimmage where they started fighting and then a whole thing broke out. There also been some heated exchanges between CeeDee and Jalen Ramsey, right? And obviously I think Jalen's kind of hinting at the media with that, and also Rams fans and all that. But so that's also going on. But, I think we're kind of seeing just a quick point on Aaron Donald, he gets kind of livid too. We've seen him. Remember when he threw his helmet out on the Niners field after he got ejected? So, personalities are flying. We're seeing it. And, some people love it like Dan Campbell, and some of us are a little bit skeptical.
No, here's the thing. I get where Dan Campbell is coming from, because in previous years, training camp fights are normal, scuffles are normal because it's players fighting for a roster spot. Yep. Emotions can run high. And I think what Dan Campbell is saying is he sees the competitiveness in that. He understands what these players are fighting for, and they really want a spot on this team. So if he's going to be hyped up by that,
do the burpees with the
he does.
Yeah,
he does.
No, I love Dan Campbell as a head coach. I know he gets a lot
more and more.
I know he gets a lot of scrutiny after the the kneecap biting stuff, but I think he's a great coach. I just love his whole vibe. I think he's great for Detroit. He's gonna, change the whole vibe around that.
Bettors
Lions
are
team.
betting on the over for their win total, a lot.
Okay, yeah, that's
considerable amount.
That's surprising.
I just saw that in the morning. I was like, wait a minute, yeah, people are really buying into.
They're buying into this, and it's not only Dan Campbell, it's Brad Holmes too, because he's a great GM. He's been doing good things right now. But I understand why that would hype you up, because training camp fights show how much these players really want it. They're willing to put everything on the line to get that roster spot and, save their dreams, as I should say. So I think training camp fights are normal. We've just been seeing a lot of brawls this year. Yeah. So that's kind of what makes it.
And it's more brawls than scuffles, which is kind of
just all out. Just
yeah,
exactly.
It's been crazy, and we're gonna see more of it. The one thing that kind of does it would have been really awesome to see the New York Giants on Hard Knocks this year, and to see
that would have been nuts,
crazy.
That would have been nuts.
HBO's eyes, that would have been pretty awesome. But maybe we'll get to see some of the stuff that's been happening with them and the Rams on Hard Knocks. So I'm pretty sure starts soon.
Yeah, I think they definitely got some of that. They had to.
So I'm excited for that. But to wrap up the episode, take it off of the field. Josh Allen just signed a massive extension with the Bills, joins the $40 million a year club. And the one thing that I want to say on this, because I guess I'll go first. I believe that Josh Allen is the level of football player that deserves this kind of money. But at the same time, I am surprised that he got so much, because I know that we've had this argument in the past. Josh Allen's had one good season. Legitimately, he's had one good season. And so for them to immediately after that one season pay him $40 million, I'm kind of surprised by that. I felt like the Bills could have gotten away by paying him less just because he hadn't had that lengthened era of success. I do believe that he is worth that. I think he'll prove it this year, but there's an argument that can be made that the Bills probably could have gotten away with paying him less. And so with that idea, it's going to be interesting to see what Lamar Jackson gets, what Baker Mayfield gets down the line, what some of these other quarterbacks get. I like Josh Allen. I think he's worth the money, but also I do feel like the Bills could have gotten away with paying him less.
With this whole extension, I feel like a proud father seeing how far he's come.
Well, it balances out with
listen,
Wentz,
you don't understand the debates I used to have with Josh Allen and Sam Darnold. One guy got traded to another team and hasn't, dazzled in camp. We don't know if he's going to last the full year. Another guy got paid $43 million a year. Just feel like a proud dad right now. Okay.
Hey,
but
it balances out with Wentz.
More than balances out.
For him to, I think here's the thing though, for your point, and I know I'm obviously going to defend him here. I think he's gotten progressively better each year.
Oh, and I won't argue that.
So, and I think
I'm on his side for this.
Yeah. I think the whole $43 million thing, I think the reason why it's explained is because of how much the whole media and how the NFL landscape has now put Josh Allen on this top 5 pedestal. Think about it, right? Like there were people like, you or a lot of guys last year who said, is Josh Allen even in your top 15? Is he even an above average quarterback, right? There were those questions literally before last year, right? Now people have thrown him above, guys like Tom Brady, Deshaun Watson in that top 3 threshold. So when you get thrown in that, then the money starts coming in, right? This was similar with Matt Ryan when he got his extension. After that MVP year, he got thrown up into this, top 5. Is he a top 5 quarterback going into next year, right? This happens all the time. And I think especially with Josh Allen, because he's so young and because, the sky's the limit for this kid, they're saying, okay, we're banking on the future. And he even said it himself. And this is how contracts work. This is how, every NFL analyst kind of looks at it. You're paying for the future, not what you've done, what you're going to do. That is why, most of these young guys will get these 6-year contracts. And now, we're seeing annual money increase, years increase sometimes. And I think that's why the $43 million is kind of, that's the reasoning behind it. And obviously I'm going to defend it. I think, a guy like him, a high character individual, a great team leader. He's gotten better every year. And I think year 4, he could even take another step up with another year in this, Sean McDermott system. But I think, this just goes to show that for quarterbacks, it could really change with just, a good year or, buying into a culture or elevating your game. This is kind of how it works, right? So with Lamar Jackson, he's honestly, ever since he stepped in for Joe Flacco, he has been really good. Regular season, he finally got that playoff win under his belt. And obviously I know Jack kind of wanted to transition it. What does this mean for Lamar Jackson? I just don't know if I don't know if a deal is going to get done before the start of this year. I think 2022 is when we're going to see the 2 AFC North guys, Baker and Lamar, really, start engaging in talks. But that means this year it's another prove it year for Lamar. I feel like he keeps having these prove it years. There's still questions after each season. Even after his MVP year, because of that playoff loss, questions just arose, right? And even now last year, right, especially that loss to Buffalo, his arm was, or at least his throws, kind of diminished from, his MVP year. There's still questions there. And I think that's why that contract just hasn't, come up yet. But with Josh Allen, it was like, oh my God, with Stephon Diggs, he's finally got this, amazing, quarterback talent. And look what they've done with the Bills. They're a perennial AFC contender. And I think that's why he got the deal done and why Lamar still has to go, because people have now put Josh Allen over Lamar Jackson. And I think that's why a deal has yet to get done.
Yeah. I mean, you hit all the points there. I mean, I think Josh Allen is a top 4 quarterback in this game right now. I'm not putting him over Mahomes, not putting him over Rodgers, not putting him over Russ. I think he's just perfect at 4. I think he deserves the money, but as Jack said, I think you could have paid him less, but I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad at it at all. I think 43 mil for him, he definitely deserves it. In terms of Lamar, I think the Ravens are definitely going to take a hard look at his resume, take a hard look at him this season, because as Anish said, again, it's a prove it year, but the resume at one point kind of speaks for itself. He's got a stacked resume already. So, I mean, I think he'll be in that $40 million club next year. I expect them to pay him, not really Mahomes money, but I think they're going to pay him more than Josh Allen. I think he'll make $44 million a year.
See, that's where the money tier comes.
That's just a guess if they're going to pay him, and he really does prove it this year.
Well, and if he's getting paid later, he's going to get paid more. I mean, that's how it works.
Yeah. It's all about the QB market, and it just keeps going up. And
the deal
for
is
Lamar,
inevitable for him. It's just like when it's going to get done. I don't expect any holdouts or anything. The Ravens want to keep this guy around.
Yeah,
it'd be relevant for a long time.
Because you're not gonna draft a guy. You're not gonna get a guy better than Lamar if you let him go. Like, you got to lock him up. So I mean, I think he's gonna definitely be in that $40 million club. And if I had to take a guess right now, it's pretty hard to make a guess, but I'll say 44 mil. I think he'll be sandwiched right between Mahomes and Josh Allen. That's just my guess for right now.
Yeah, and then Baker and Kyler, those become the interesting questions, but I don't think we need to think about them till after the season, to be completely honest. The Browns
have engaged with they're focused on Ward and Teller right now, so Baker's kind of next year.
Well, they did sign Chubb. That answered a question.
They did.
There you go.
Dude, okay. Actually, I wanted a quick question for Jack, because with you especially, you're very vocal about these running back contracts. I thought this one was a good deal, but
I think it's the best deal that I have seen I feel like it's still like I'm still iffy on it, but I think if they were going to sign him, yeah, that's a good deal for what they were doing. Like,
his
especially
money was very little. I was very surprised by it. It was only 20 mil. Mm-hmm. So because they're playing the injury bug with Chubb too, because we've seen him get injured a couple times.
As I've said, and you guys know this, for as much as I've said I hate all the things that the teams have been doing with the running back position, I didn't hate that move. So I guess that'll tell you what I think.
It was a good contract.
It's a good contract for what it was. Yeah. I definitely agree. And if they're just showing that's where their priority lies. And for a team like the Browns, who have committed to the run, and they're getting that deal for it, I was partially a fan of that.
Yeah, Chubb's not even a high character or a high personality dude, but like, he wanted to stay in Cleveland. Hearing about that, again, just as a Browns fan, makes me happy that people actually want to stay here. So
yeah, it's kind of a complete 180 from past years.
Yep.
But that's pretty much all we got for you guys in this episode. We really thank you guys for listening. We're glad to be back. I know, actually, wait. Anish had one fantasy football question for all of you guys.
If you stuck around, and shout out to all the people that did. I just want an answer on this. So it's non-PPR. I got the third pick. I already know that my friends are going to go with McCaffrey and Kamara. I'm stuck between Dalvin Cook and Derrick Henry. Those are my two guys that I'm really thinking about. I've spent the last 3 days thinking about it. Please, someone help me. I'm leaning Dalvin. That's just my thing right now, but if I could hear a case from someone on why it should be Henry, I'm willing to listen to it, because I'm very much torn about it, and it's going to haunt me till the draft on August 13th. So please help me out.
This is a petition. Make your case down in the comment section below. And while you're down there, if you don't mind, please consider hitting the subscribe button. We're so close to 4,000 subscribers, which is crazy to say. Please consider hitting the like button, hitting the subscribe button, all that kind of stuff. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, please consider leaving a 5-star review and following the show. We really appreciate you guys carving out time in your day to listen to us talk some football. If you're still here, thank you guys so much. We've been the Cold Hard Truth Podcast, saying see you guys next time.